Greetings, brethren. Housebroker Donkey here, and as you can see, I kind of skipped the step that I didn't show you, but it's not a big one, right? So I sanded down all of the hills, as you can see. They're not perfectly rounded all around, but I'm happy with it. I think it's good enough. And then I painted them green straight onto the filler. If you want to be super safe, and also especially if you're using, I saw someone in the comments say they use a water mixing filler, so that would be like a powder, and you mix that with water, and you stir it into a filler mass sort of stuff. So it's not this stuff, because this stuff is sort of a polymer thing. So it's like a plastic, and that doesn't react with water. If you use straight up water-based paint on that water mixing filler, it might reactivate and go soft and squidgy. So be sure to make tests with your fillers, and if it does sort of reactivate with water, then just give it another coat of Mod Podge before you go to the painting stage. Or PVA glue, that's fine too. But PVA glue takes a lot longer to dry than Mod Podge. Right, so I didn't use anything fancy to paint these. These are just regular sort of cheapo artist acrylics. I don't know what each of these tubes cost me. I bought them at the local art supplier, but you could use anything. It doesn't really matter. Craft paint or wall paint like this, that's fine too. But for this particular one, this green is all I had. Or these greens from the artist colors. So that's what I painted them with. As you can also see, I didn't really care too much about opacity on this one. I had to go over this one twice, so that's why it's a bit more opaque. And there's one white spot, sadly, but oh well. Yeah, but that's really it. I didn't do anything special. I just wanted it to dry out completely, because this sort of artists' acrylics and wall paints, they take a while to properly dry. So, and now we're going to do the next step, which is I have some PVA glue and I have some greenish water. It doesn't matter that the water is just there to thin down the PVA a little bit, teensy little bit. And then we're gonna apply that straight on the entire hill, and make sure that you get all of the sort of bottom corners. It's don't let it get too much underneath. And just gonna spread that. We don't want it too wet for what I'm doing. I'll show you in a second. I probably should have showed you that stuff before, but I think I showed it to you. I think I showed it in a different video. Ugh. So, sorry about that, I kind of forgot. But you'll see in a second. Just gonna spread that all over the thing. It's a little bit awkward with the camera in the way, not gonna lie. But we shall persevere. Now I have a lot of glue underneath, which isn't great, but oh well. Hopefully it won't stick to the table too much when it's done. All right, and then we got this. And then what I'm using is some homemade old school flock, which is basically just sawdust that I have dyed. So you take a bunch of sawdust and you mix in acrylic paint, and then you stir it until it's all absorbed, and then it just needs to dry, which I did in the oven. And then you just sprinkle that all around. We want it to be nicely covered from all sides, because we didn't put too much water into the PVA glue, but the water that is in it will kind of absorb a bunch of this stuff, and we want it to be nice and tightly packed so that it can take up as much of the flock as possible. And then we're just gonna leave this to dry, and I would say about an hour, maybe 2, depending on the PVA glue you use. The one I use usually dries within an hour or so, or at least starts to dry. And at that point, you can then pick it up, bang it a little bit on one of the edges, but carefully so you don't, bang off all the flock that you put on. But just shake off the flock, get rid of most of the excess, and then you should be left with something that looks like this. See, there's still some extra bits on it, but all in all, we have ourselves a lovely sort of 90s, 2000s era old school hill. And I will say that this one is a little bit, it came out a little bit darker because this is the only flock I had on hand and I really wanted to finish these videos. Otherwise I maybe would have tried to get a little bit more of a goblin greenish look to them. But I think they look great. And I might have to go over here again. There's a bit of a shimmer of the paint underneath coming through. So it's a little bit thin here. But I think in general it still looks really good. And I wanted to show you this because I'm only doing these 3 hills in the actual sort of original version, and then with the remainder of the hills over there, we're gonna do a slightly more modern interpretation of this. But yeah, I think they turned out great. I really like them. They're gonna look excellent on the table, I think. And yeah, I'm gonna do this also with the big one, but I won't show that. And yeah, oh yeah, one thing I do need to say is once you put on this flock and it's dry, like properly dried, so a day later I would say, I would absolutely say you should go over this either with a thinned down PVA glue and sort of with a spritzer squeezy bottle thing and just cover it again so that it's basically sealed in from both sides with PVA, or what I do usually, because the soaking it from both sides, it kind of ruins the texture and the color a little bit. So I like to just varnish it. So I do that with the airbrush. That also blows off any excess that wasn't sticking. And then, just heavily varnish it with the airbrush. Or you can do that with a rattle can as well. That's fine too. Just obviously make it a matte varnish and not something glossy. And that should keep the flock on there for a good while. You will definitely have some coming off every now and then, and eventually it will wear down to the green paint again in places, especially with heavy use. But a hill like this you can super easily repair by just putting some glue, some PVA glue where the patches are, where it's rubbing through. And make sure that the PVA glue is thin, and then you don't put on like a massive glob. You should try to, with a brush like this, well, I guess there was a patchy spot, so I guess I can just show it. You want to try to, let's actually try to get some glue, and you want to try to sort of do it like this, sort of rub it in, right? So that it's kind of thin, and it's kind of already sort of adjusted to the surface, so that when you put on more of the flock, let's see, there we go, just patting it down now, so that, see that it doesn't ruin the overall texture, because now when I just get rid of it a bit more and then varnish it again, it'll be a one, it'll look natural. It won't be just a glob that sits on top of the rest of the flock, so it kind of blends in better. All right, that's your old school hills. That's how you make them. And then in the next video in the series, we'll look at how we sort of spruce them up a little bit and bring them into the 21st century. All right, I hope you enjoyed this series so far. It's really easy to make. I will also make a video specifically just on how to make old school flock, because it is super easy, and depending on how easily you can get sawdust, it is probably the cheapest basing material you will ever have. All right, thanks for watching, and look out for the next video, which will probably be a few days, because I have some more terrain to do that I also want to do at the same time, to save myself some time. But we'll see each other then. All right, thanks for watching, and take care, guys.